Good morning, Dreamhouse Nation. It's James Lewis, this Dreamhouse, the show that is all about the house. Joining us today is the inventor of the Elam Ending, Nick Elam. We'll be discussing the upcoming TBT. Nick, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be on your show. Thank you.
Most people know about the TBT by now, but for those that are uninitiated, what is the TBT?
Yeah, TBT stands for the basketball tournament. It's a tournament that was founded in 2014, and the concept that makes it different from other sporting events or other basketball tournaments is that it's essentially an open tournament. Anybody in the world can get a team together, and they are competing for a winner-take-all prize, where the champion takes home all the money, and it's up to them how they want to split up the prize money, and if you finish runner-up or any less than that, then you walk away empty-handed. So it's very high stakes. It's very fascinating to see how some of the recruiting goes for some of these teams, and some of the behind the scenes, I'm sure, is very fascinating on if they try to recruit a certain player to their team, how big of a share of the prize money do they agree upon for that particular player, if it's a star player, things like that. So, but I mean, they get very high quality players who have played in the NBA, players who have accomplished careers overseas in professional leagues, players who are standout college stars, things like that. So it's very, very high-level basketball, and I can't wait for it to get started on July 16th.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think something like a outside the lines or behind the scenes story about the recruiting process would be quite interesting because, like you said, I mean, there's such talent, like the NBA players, the overseas players, the great college players. I mean, there is just a remarkable amount of talent that, unfortunately, there's only so many spots in the NBA, and some of these players, are good enough to play there. It's just due to numbers.
Yeah, and it's also fascinating because TBT, they just play a very compressed schedule. You've got games on back-to-back days, sometimes 3 days in a row or 3 games in 4 days, things like that. So you might think, well, we want to have a deeper roster, and sure, that makes sense in a way, but if you have a deeper roster, well, that means if you win it all, you've got to split that prize money up more ways. So that might de-incentivize people from joining the team, but if you try to go with a thinner roster and so that everybody gets a bigger slice of the pie, you might not even make it to the championship because you might run out of gas before then.
Exactly. There's just so many variables, so many things to factor in with the TBT. And like you said, it's not just like that other tournament in March. This thing, anybody is eligible. So it's just such a bigger talent pool.
Right. And the talent, there is no shortage of talent. And I'm really excited to see some of these strong teams in the strong field here in 2021. I think it could possibly be the strongest field TBT's ever had.
So how has Jonathan Mugar's vision grown and evolved?
Yeah, John Mugar and his longtime friend Dan Friel, they were the co-founders of this event, and I think they had a vision for this winner-take-all tournament, and that spirit of it has truly carried forward all these years later. Now they're going into, I think, the 8th edition of TBT, and that fundamental original vision of a high-stakes, winner-take-all, high-level tournament has grown and has stayed true to that original vision. Other things that have kind of evolved over the way is that one thing I don't think that they necessarily saw emerging was this phenomenon of alumni teams, college alumni teams forming and entering the tournament. Now I think a big chunk of the field, maybe close to half of the field, is made up of college alumni teams. And so there's the really strong cohesiveness among those teams that play, but also that really generates a lot of fan interest to see some of those players that fans remember fondly reuniting. And some of them who didn't even play together, they might have had a staggered class. They might have been 4 or 5 years apart at the university that didn't really play together. And now here they are as alumni coming together and forming a team. So that's one way that it's evolved. But another way is that John Mugar, I think, always wanted TBT to be known as a trendsetter, and it has certainly been known in that regard. One way is their bracket celebration. Immediately after the end of each game, they have a physical bracket right behind the baseline that the teams go and physically place their placard, their team placard, in the next round of the bracket, and that has been adopted by the NCAA tournament, a similar celebration for the NCAA tournament game. And then also another innovation that they've adopted is the creation of mine, which has become known as the Elam Ending, which is meant to preserve a more natural and exciting style of play through the end of every game. And that we've also seen that grow into many, many other leagues and events throughout the basketball world.
Excellent. So you mentioned the alumni teams. Obviously, they have Cameron's Crew here in Columbus. We have the Red Scare up in Dayton and the Zip 'em Ups in Cincinnati. So, I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of great alumni, a lot of great local talent playing in the TBT this year.
Yeah, just in the Columbus region itself, just like you mentioned, Carmen's Crew, who won the tournament in 2019, the Ohio State alumni team. Dayton alumni, the fans will always show out for Dayton, and I'm a Dayton alumnus myself, and so it's great to see in the Dayton alumni team. There's a chance, in the third round that Dayton could meet up with their former arch rival Xavier, and we don't get to see Dayton and Xavier play much anymore, but this will be one chance to revive that tradition and that rivalry. And then also for the first time, an Ohio University alumni team will enter the field. And so even other local teams, there's a Purdue alumni team. There's a chance that the Ohio State and Purdue teams could meet each other in the second round. So I mean, it's going to be just an electric atmosphere in Columbus, and then for the early rounds, and then it's going to carry over to Dayton for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship.
Nice. So, and the way I understand it, it's starting relatively soon. I think it's July 16th?
Right. So, July 16th will be the start of the Wichita region, and the next day, Charleston, West Virginia region. And then the next weekend, there will be action in Peoria, Illinois, and also Columbus, Ohio. And then it will all culminate July 31st through August 1st in Dayton. And the $1 million championship, winner take all, will be on August 3rd in Dayton. And all of those games, from first tip-off to that last basket to win it all the games are going to be on the ESPN family of networks.
And then last year in a shortened tournament, the Golden Eagles of Marquette ended up winning, I understand.
That's right, and it was an amazing tournament. It was a real credit to John Mugar and all the people at TBT. We were in a pandemic, obviously, and to that point, there were only a few sports, kind of individual sports, that had come back to action. I think maybe golf had come back a little bit, and maybe some autos, like motorsports, things like that, had come back. But by early July of last year, in America, there really were no other team sports that were going on. So TBT took a chance with it, and it was not just on a whim. I mean, they were very, very diligent in being careful in creating a true bubble environment for TBT. But they were the first team sports in America to come back to action, and they served as a model for other, like the NBA or the NHL, even Major League Baseball to an extent. They served as a model for this bubble environment to bring team sports back throughout the United States. And so it was a great tournament, really packed field, because there's only 24 teams. So there was 24 really teams that had a real chance to win it all. And it was great to see Golden Eagles win it all, because they had come closer and closer and closer, step by step, each of the last several years, just coming one step closer. And finally, they were able to put that ball through the net to win it all in a thrilling championship that came down to the wire against Sideline Cancer.
And that is the great thing about the TBT. Like you said, put the ball in the net to win the championship, because some other championships at the end of the game, they don't have to score to win. But with your ending, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so under normal circumstances, under the regular format, we do see occasional great finishes, but there are really a lot of circumstances that have to align just right in order to get a great finish. And even when we do get a great finish, you have to go to the monitor and check to make sure a shot was released on time. So even then, it kind of spoils the moment. But with the Elam Ending, again, the whole idea of the Elam Ending is to preserve a more natural an exciting style of play through the end of the game. It's not meant to change basketball. It's meant to do the opposite, to give us more familiar style of play. So the idea in a nutshell, the Elam Ending, is that you play most of the game with a game clock, but you play the last part of the game without a game clock. And what that does is if you are ahead late in the game, you can't just stall and try to run out the clock. You have to keep playing assertively. You have to lean into the finish to win the game. If you're behind and you're on defense with the Elam Ending, you don't have to foul and give away free points at the free throw line. You can continue to rely on defensive stops. When you're on offense and you're trailing, you don't have to force up these ugly shots. You can look for your best shot. That combination of factors makes the outcome of the game less predictable. It makes late comebacks more likely, and like you said, every game is guaranteed to end with the swish of a net. So it makes for a more memorable game-ending moment. So TBT was the first league and event to take a chance on this back in 2017 on an experimental basis. And they liked it so much that they've gone all in on the Elam Ending, and every game since then in TBT play has been played with the Elam Ending, and it's worked. I had high expectations for the format, and it has met and exceeded my expectations. And so it's just great to see that concept grow.
And then there have been other leagues that have incorporated it into their endings. I understand even the NBA and their AllStar Game.
Yeah, certainly that's the most notable, growth of the Elam Ending is that, less than 3 years after TBT adopted this format for the very first time, and anyone had ever seen it back in 2017, less than 3 years later at the 2020 NBA All-Star Game, now we have literally the greatest players in the world all on one court playing with the Elam Ending at the NBA All-Star Game. And it worked so well there that the NBA brought it back again for the All-Star Game in 2021, and I think it's going to be continue to be used there. We've seen the Elam Ending implemented and currently, as we speak, at the Canadian Elite Basketball League, which is a professional high-level league again. Using that for their entire season in 2020 and also 2021. And then aside from that, just if you look at all various levels, whether it's high school summer camps or AAU leagues, rec leagues, semi-pro leagues, there have been, just dozens and dozens of leagues and events throughout the United States and across the world that have implemented the Elam Ending. And I think what's really interesting and very noteworthy is that any league or event that has adopted the Elam Ending has never gone back to the regular format. They've been so happy with the Elam Ending that they've continued to use the Elam Ending.
Now, of course, the great thing is you're local, so I understand you're going to be attending both probably the Columbus and the Dayton games.
Yeah, I'm going to take in as many games as I can, and I always do that every year with TBT. Last year was the exception because of the pandemic, but I always try to attend as many games as possible because, certainly I will go through and dive into the numbers and dissect things possession by possession later on. But I think there are some things that you can't always put a number to. You can't always measure easily. And I think that's why it's really important for me to be in the arena to make sure that the Elam Ending is generating the kind of atmosphere that I would want. And to this point, it always has. It's always been successful in that regard. But I'm going to catch a lot of live action this year in Charleston, West Virginia, and the next weekend in Columbus, Ohio, and then certainly I'll be at all the final round games in Dayton.
So for our listeners that are in Columbus or in Cincinnati, because obviously we're going to have fans travel from all over to the Columbus games. When are the Columbus games?
The Columbus games will start on Friday, July 23rd, and there's a full day of games on July 23rd, and on Saturday, July 24th. Those will be just great days of basketball, jam-packed with great action. Then another full day of basketball on Sunday, July 26th, I believe. July 25th on that Sunday. And then they'll take a day off on that Monday, and then on the evening of Tuesday, July 27th, then they will have 2 games to see who advances to Dayton. And so July 23rd through July 27th, lots of great action. Tickets are going fast. But they can go to thetournament.com and check out ticket options.
Nice. And then, of course, because once again, it's local, which is just so phenomenal that our fans can attend these games. Then the championship and the 31st through the 3rd of August is going to be at UD. I mean, that is just a great place to watch basketball.
Absolutely. And someone who lives, I've had season tickets for Dayton games since I enrolled there in the year 2000, and that's even since I've lived 2 hours away from Dayton now. I live in central Indiana. I live 2 hours away and still have season tickets and go to every game I can, and that's just one snapshot of the passionate fan base that Dayton has that certainly packs the arena for all Dayton's home games. They travel all over the country to see Dayton play in road games or in tournaments. And, I mean, that even if it's not Dayton playing, Dayton fans are so passionate that that's what brought the first four as a consistent home for the NCAA tournament to start their tournament every year. And so it made a lot of sense for TBT to bring their championships there, because certainly if the Dayton team's still alive, that place is going to be rocking. But even if it's not, even if the Dayton team doesn't make it there, Dayton fans are so passionate about the game that they're still going to create a great atmosphere.
Exactly. We had Joey Gruden on a couple weeks ago, and that was one of the things he emphasized, just how much he appreciates the fans up there in Dayton and how great of a support that they've received from the fans. And it just seems like such a great amount of talent with those three teams locally, with Dayton, Columbus, and Cincinnati Xavier having great fan bases. So before we let you go, Nick, where on social media, where on the web, where can our listeners find out more about you and your ending?
Yeah, they can follow me at Elam Ending.
Excellent. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on today. And as always, we want to have you again next year to talk up more TBT.
That sounds great.